Welcome to the Mentor Me Kelly Show. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. I'm also affectionately known as the Speaker Mogul. Now, on this show, you will get a behind the scenes look as I mentor and provide strategic guidance to women speakers, experts, and thought leaders to elevate their speaking business. I'll do this using our P6 framework: positioning, prospecting, pitching, pricing, packaging, and presentation skills. So listen in as they ask questions and I give answers. But don't just listen. Take notes, take action, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mentor Me Kelly Show. And I'm so excited. We've had some really great episodes and questions. So who am I? I am your host, Kelly Charles Collins. I'm a retired employment law trial attorney, a strategic consultant for women thought leaders, a keynote and award-winning TEDx speaker, an author. What else am I? The CEO of Speaker Moguls. And so Mentor Me Kelly is a way for me to give back. It's a way for me to answer questions and give you kind of a behind the scenes of how I work with clients to help them strategically to get to where they want to go. So I always tell people I'm not a coach. I am going to give you answers. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think you should do. You could do it or not, but I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are. And so in Mentor Me Kelly, what you'll see is that you'll have women speakers, thought leaders, experts who have questions about their speaking business. And so we're really focused on 6 pillars. It's called our P6 framework. So positioning, pitching, prospecting, packaging, pricing, presentation skills. So the questions will be necessarily related to those issues, but I don't know the questions beforehand. I am here, I am open, and my guest, who today is awesome, Alfreda Boney, she's going to ask questions and I am going to answer them. But before we do that, I want Alfreda to introduce herself to you so that you all know who she is, what she does out in this world, and then we will get started. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I'm so appreciative of this. So I am Alfreda Boney. I am CEO of Perfectly Suited Career Consulting, where we offer services in workforce and professional development training to small businesses and nonprofits in the Southeast region of the United States, specifically Florida and South Georgia.
Awesome. All right. So, Alfreda, we've known each other for some years. We met during the pandemic when I had one of my other businesses. And so I know that you've been out and you've been speaking and you've been doing different things, but you wanted to come on to ask me some questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and whatever questions you have, ask away and I will do my best to answer.
Well, thank you for that. So, in my world, I am a subject matter expert as it relates to all things workforce development and professional development. So, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofits in helping them to assist in trainings, certifications, and such. I have been getting opportunities to do speaking, but what really I think that I find myself being a little bit all over the place because sometimes I get people to say, I don't want them to single me out and think that I'm just workforce development. I've done some motivational speaking opportunities. I've done some specific things with like SHRM and our Jacksonville Women's Business Center. I'm located in Jacksonville, Florida. I've been a keynote twice for some institutions. One was a vocational, training college. Another one was a small workforce development nonprofit agency. But, they always, they give you a plaque and they just give you, a little certificate. And it's like, I don't go in knowing how to put a price tag on that or how to scale that. So I know one of my first questions is always about how do you position yourself to be considered an actual paid speaker? And I've done research, but it seems like for me, they just look at me like, oh, I'm supposed to just give it away. And I know that's not, you don't have to do that all the time.
Right. You don't have to do it any of the time if you don't want to. Right. So here's the thing about positioning yourself. One, when you say, how do I position myself as a paid speaker? Well, first, you just have to claim that that's who you are, right? You claim that I am a professional speaker. If I'm a professional, professionals are paid. right? So that's the first thing. Like you have to get that in your mind. You have to solidify that in your brain. You have to really believe that that's who you are and that you deserve to be paid, right? So that's a mindset kind of shift that has to happen, right? So what happens sometimes is that we're waiting for other people to crown us as deserving of being paid. Well, they're not going to do that, right? Nobody's trying to like just give away money. That's not what they do. So if you don't have that expectation, you don't show up with that expectation, and then whatever they've decided is what you're going to go with, right? Because you don't have your own lane. You don't have your own thought process about, no, I'm a paid speaker. So if you're asking me to speak, at some point we're going to have a discussion about money. But because you don't have that solidified in your mind, then you'll just go with what there is, right? So
Mhm.
there's this concept that I talk about and that we've created in Speaker Moguls where we talk about CEO versus talent. Talent ends up on stage, right? Talent is the one who wants to be on stage. I want people to hear my story. I want people to hear my message. I want to be out there. When talent is in control, and then that's where you end up not being paid because talent doesn't care necessarily about the money. Talent just wants to be on the stage because that's what talent, right? That's our whole thing. If talent took off that hat and said, no, got to think business, right? I am the CEO of a business. So you said PSC Consulting, I am a CEO. A business needs funds to run, right? And so if you're having conversations as somebody who's running a business, then the number on the other end can't just be zero all the time because then that doesn't make sense. A business can't run without getting money, right? Does
Right.
that make sense?
Right. You're right.
Yeah. So that's the first thing, right? Just getting in your own mind and really believing that you are deserving. The second thing, though, and this came up kind of when you were saying, I don't want them to just think that I speak about this or that I do that. Again, this is about you deciding who you want to be in the world. So when we talk about positioning, part of positioning is determining who Alfreda wants to be in the world in terms of speaking, right? What do you want people to know you for? Is it workforce development? Is it motivation? What do you want to be known for? And then you create that as your business, and that's what you put out into the world, right? So other people aren't determining for you, you determine for yourself. Like, I want to be a motivational speaker. I want to motivate around this particular topic, or I want to speak about workforce development, or I want to do both. But if you want to do both, those are probably, and I don't know all of the details around what you speak about, but they're probably a little bit different. And so there's positioning that has to go with both. You have to do all of the branding and the questions and the understanding and the internal work around the workforce development, which you've been doing for years.
Mhm.
And then the motivational. You can see if there's some alignment or overlap. There may be. And if not, then you just have to really understand how to position both so that the motivational people that need you, oh, okay, Alfreda does that. The workforce people know that you do that.
That's good. I was actually, working this morning, and there's a call for speakers, like in Georgia, right up from me, and they just wanted a title, but it does not have any place of saying what is your fee. And I was I guess I've been in the mindset of saying, okay, obviously I have to build up a form of reputation, but even after paying attention to all of your content, I know that just trying to get attention is not beneficial either, right? It's like I can apply to this call for speakers and get it. But then if they look at you and say, well, you did that one without getting paid, so obviously we could touch you over here and not pay you either. It's like, or I went into situations and I'm like, so what is your budget? Because you don't want to underquote yourself and be considered cheap or go too far and they're like, oh, I could never afford you. So it's like, how do you get even out of that realm?
Okay. You said a few things, so let me just write down because I want to make sure that I answer them. Um, uh, okay. So, a couple of things that you said. One was that you're applying for a call for, or you saw a call for speakers. So, 99% of the time, probably, call for speakers are unpaid, right? They're usually looking for, if it's a big conference, they're usually looking for the breakout sessions, right? People to speak for the breakout sessions. They don't usually use a call for speakers for keynotes. There are some call for speakers that will ask, like, what is your fee? Because some of them will pay a fee, but for the most part, they don't, right? When you're using a call for speakers. Here's the thing about not being paid upfront to speak. It's not always a bad thing, or a thing to say no. So you probably heard me say this a million times when I talk about speaking for free. It's not about not ever speaking for free. It's about not ever speaking for free with the inability to make money at all out of that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were doing a call for speakers, say for instance, if you were, so you're on your workforce development side, say for instance, you were going to go to a SHRM conference, right? And in that SHRM conference, we know that there are decision makers who could possibly hire you, pull you into their companies to teach something around workforce development. Well, that's an opportunity because what is it? It's marketing, right? It's a marketing opportunity. Anytime you're on the stage, it's marketing, right? But that's a marketing opportunity where okay, well, at least my potential clients are there. There are people that I could connect with to potentially make money on the back end. Right. But if you're talking about workforce development and somebody's just like, oh, hey, I want you to come. We're doing this, women's empowerment conference, or we're doing this, some other type of conference, and we just want you to speak. And well, those aren't even my people. And then they want you to do it for free. You're just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Right. The math has to math. Right. So it's not that it's always never speaking for free, but it's speaking for free strategically, right? With intention, with purpose, with understanding that there is some way to make money on the other side of that. And then you were saying, if you did it for free, then other people are gonna be like, well, you did that one for free. Well,
they wouldn't know, but
they wouldn't know, right? That's the first thing. They wouldn't know. And secondly, that's something that you have in your brain. Right. So you have to that's a conversation you're having in your brain. You have to get that conversation out of your brain. Because I don't care if I spoke for this person for free. That doesn't mean that I'm going to speak for you. There's a reason I may have done that. Right. So you have to get that out of your brain. That's a business decision. And you get to make business decisions. And guess what? My business decision this time is that you're going to pay me. I made a business decision that they didn't have to pay me. But this time you have to. So that's an internal conversation. You have a lot of internal conversations going on that you have to release, right? And then about the budget. I rarely, if like, it'll be like 1 out of a million chances that I'm going to ask you your budget, because your budget's not my business, right? Their budget is really not your business. The budget is what they've decided the value is, and what they've placed the value on whatever transformation that they're looking for. It has nothing to do with what your fee is going to be. Your fee has to do with the value that you've placed on the transformation that you can create for the problem that they have. So now you have a number and they have a number, right? Some people ask the budget, but if you're not steadfast in the value of the transformation that you provide, what's going to happen is what you said was like, I don't want to be under, I don't want to be right. So now you're going to be gauging your number against their number. Right. So if what you really want to charge is $10,000 and they say the budget is $2,000, but talent is like, I want to be on that stage. I want to be on that stage. Then you're going to be like, okay, well, maybe I could do the 2,000 when good and doggone well, you have no desire to do it for $2,000, but that's what they've told you their budget is. Great. Don't worry about that. This is my fee. Right. So I don't ask the budget. I'll just say, this is my fee. The only time I'll ask like a budget is if they're doing, like if they get funding, I may ask, well, what is the funding? Like, what did you get like in terms of the funding? Because that makes a difference, right? Because they have very they have constraints within which they can, deal with the money or whatever. So I may ask that if it's something like that. But if it's just like a regular old, yeah, I don't really care. Or I'll say what my fee is. And then if I'm feeling like a resistance or hesitation, I may say, well, what did you have what were your thoughts about the budget? That doesn't mean that that's going to impact my fees in any way. It's just information.
Gotcha.
Right? So the thing is, like, you have to know your number. There's two numbers really that you need to know, like when you're negotiating. You have to know your top number and your walkaway number, right? And the in between is where you negotiate. So you negotiate between your numbers. You don't negotiate off of their numbers.
Okay. So, but if well, not a but coming in as a new speaker and presenting and pitching, your topics and such, where is that line that you started? Because
Okay.
I mean, I would love to say, oh yes, I need 10,000, and I'm saying, okay, you're still refining, but I do get what you're saying. All these voices in my head that I'm so used to, you're dealing with someone like nonprofits with this budget, and they say, oh, we can, we have this, so it's like really changing a 180 on what I'm used to doing in the environment that I have been in. How do you position yourself as someone new going into that realm?
Well, I'm going to ask you about that statement that you keep saying about new. What do you mean by new?
I have been training, for all of these years, basically, and the opportunities to speak have become more common than not, right? Just from people in the relationships and the connections that I made. And so it's almost like, oh yeah, I'll do it. So I'm adding myself into the environment because I do want to expand myself into that role. But I feel like, I definitely need some refining in just not being all over the place with my subject matter and being specific to I can be specific to the topics they ask. But then, like I said, it's the newness of putting that price tag on it and saying, this is my fee, right? And definitely charging my worth and value, not necessarily saying that I don't feel like I'm unworthy of it, but I think that I've been in an environment that I'm so used to asking for the budget because of training. I think that I'm still relying on one level of my expertise versus this level, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because I hear what you're saying is your fee equals your value. It's the transformation that I'm bringing, and I know I can bring that. But obviously, I'm not putting my value behind that either. And I love that. I wrote that down because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But I still want to talk to you about this whole concept of new and what you're considering to be new, right? Because I think this is a trap that many speakers fall into, particularly women speakers, particularly Black women speakers. We fall into this trap of new. What is new? Like, what about this is new? Like, are you saying new in that you're new to speaking, or you're new to the area of expertise? Because I know that's not the answer. So, like, what is the new? Because the new, right? And the reason I want to focus with you on this and other people who are watching is because that word new is holding you back. That word new is causing you to think that there is a lesser value to what you're doing. So talk to me about what is new for you.
Oh, you hit me so good right there. Okay, because I do that to the businesses that I work with. Like, I'm telling them the same thing. Okay, so you're right. I am equating it to me tapping into this new lane, this lane of expertise, of service. Let's say it like that. It's a new line item as far as that is concerned, and that is
Speaking?
so.
Are you saying speaking is a new
Yeah,
line item?
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna
yeah,
talk about that. Mm-hmm.
that one, definitely that. Because
Okay.
I help businesses build out their capability statements, right? And I do the same thing to them. I'm like, you're not new if you brought your expertise over from your background, like, and you just hit me in the head, like, I've been saying that to everybody else, and you just like, that's what you're doing, really?
Yeah, because I know I've watched you for years, so I know. And so here's the other thing though that I want to hone in with you on with new, right? And speaking. So one of the things that I know that you've been doing for years is workshops,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's speaking.
I know.
For some reason, I don't know who's taught people this, and I like this. For some reason, you all think that when you're training or whatever you call training or doing a workshop, somehow that's not speaking. But somebody says, "Oh, you want to do a keynote?" All of a sudden, that's speaking. It's
Right.
all speaking.
Right.
It's all speaking. This is speaking, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this show. This is speaking. It is just a delivery method. It is a different type, there's a different way of delivering a message. So, a keynote is a way of delivering a message. And a workshop is a way of delivering a message. A training is a way of delivering a message. A podcast interview, a television interview, whatever. It is a different way of verbally speaking, right? And delivering a message. So you're just the only newness is that you're thinking, okay, I've been doing training and I've been doing workshops. I would like to do some keynote speaking. Again, just a delivery method. There's nothing new. You already know how to speak. You've been speaking for years. You were speaking for years before you started doing what you were doing. Like when I talked to you back during the pandemic, you'd been doing all that stuff. How did you get to the point that you can teach people how to do their capability statements and talk about workforce development because you have the experience and the expertise, just like you're telling them, right? It's just a delivery method. But here's the thing, because you have all of that experience and because you have that expertise, you can teach people how to do that in a faster way, in a more efficient way without making all of the mistakes. There's value in your experience, right? There's value in what you know how to do to be able to teach us how to do it quicker, faster, more efficiently, right? So that's where you have to think about, okay, now, so what's the value? What's the transformation that I'm going to give to you? And what is the value that I put on that, right? So you had said, like, where do you start in terms of like pricing? I can tell you anything. I could tell you any number. I could tell you Alfreda charge 10,000, Alfreda charge 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have to do is you have to look at the cost of doing business, right? What is it's just like any other business. If I'm going to sell, say I have this shirt, right? And I'm going to sell this shirt. Well, what does it cost? How do I get this shirt from the manufacturer, from the designer, from concept to design to manufacture to distribution, right? What are all the things that have to happen? Who do I have to pay? How do I have to, right? Same thing with a presentation, whether it's a keynote, a workshop, whatever. What are all the things from concept through delivery? What are all the costs, right? Do you have to hire somebody to help you with the PowerPoints, or do you have to do the PowerPoint? So that's your time, right? Do you pay for, if you have to do it on Zoom, are you paying for Zoom? If
Mm-hmm.
you have to do workbooks, how much time did it take you to develop look at what it costs to develop the workbook? And are you going to be printing the workbook? Like there's everything. If I have to go get my hair done and my nails done and what am I going to wear and all of that stuff. So that's like the ancillary. Those are the business expenses, like looking at business expenses. Now, if I do a workshop with you, and it's about creating capability statements, right? And Mike, you get to now take that capability statement and go to a corporation who can hire you, and you're getting a 5-figure, 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure contracts because I've taught you how to take all of your expertise and put it into a capability statement.
Mm-hmm.
What's the value of that? What is
Right.
the value of the transformation that you've provided for them? It's not $5 if what they can get is 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures. It's not that. It's not free. It's probably not $500. I always say for women like you, women that I work with, right? So I always work with women who have a deep level of expertise, not newbies, like, people who don't have any level of expertise. That's what I call new, right? Um, it should have a comma and zeros after it.
Mm-hmm.
It should just be, it does not make sense for it to be anything else, right? But what that exact number is, unless I worked with you and knew exactly what your presentation was, what your workshop was, what your keynote is, then I can't give you that exact number, but I could tell you it shouldn't be three numbers. I will tell you that. I will tell you that it should have a comma and zeros. Right?
And I think that is, and I know I probably am not the only one that has
Nope.
this limiting, thing when it comes to that, because that has been such of the struggle. I've had people say, you worried about other people's pockets too much.
Yes, girl,
And
you
as long
can't.
as I've been in business, it's not to say that I have not done really well before the pandemic. I'll say it like
Mhm.
that, before the pandemic. But and I don't know. I don't want to say that it's regionally an issue or just saying that you're in a certain environment, because I'm definitely trying to step out of it being local. Like I'm reaching out to tap into other areas that people do see value, because sometimes just being around the same people, they like, oh, that's just too expensive, or that's this, that, and the third. And it's like, okay, I got to get out of this circle. This circle is limiting me, and I'm limiting myself by accepting what obviously is, shared. And they say, oh, well, this is it, instead of just walking away. I love how you put that. There's a top number and then there's a walk away number, right?
Mhm.
But that has definitely been my hiccup of that pricing, of feeling that I didn't want to be so out of reach, especially in, if someone is looking for a job, okay, or I'm working with a nonprofit that's working with youth and so forth, and they say, well, we have this budget of, this much. Yes, I definitely upcharge my materials. Um, I've had an opportunity to do a breakout session for a major nonprofit. I did their conference last year, and honestly, I took it because I felt like, well, that's the exposure, right? It was an opportunity of exposure. I did not get paid, but I did have a manual that I had created and took with me.
Mhm.
The disadvantage of that was that they had so many breakout sessions that the people could choose where they wanted to go. So obviously they were going after what was most popular, or a topic. So I might have had, five or six people in my session across 4 other sessions. You get it?
Mhm.
So I was disappointed, but it was the exposure of saying, well, I did speak. And I know that's the social proof that I
Mhm.
did collect, right? Afterwards, of saying, okay, I spoke at Jim Moran, or I spoke whatever. And so
Right.
I think I've used a lot of the expertise that I've been in lately to just use it as social proof. But I'm over social proof.
Right.
I'm like, I
Right.
think I have proved myself. They call me the capability connector. I know how to bring people together, but I'm like, I'm tired of not eating the same.
Yeah.
Like, I am so over that. And um, you definitely talked about. I think maybe pitching. My pitching could be off
Mhm.
based on, I know what needs to be done, and either I'm not saying the correct verbiage. Obviously, you taught me something that's saying, this is my fee instead of your budget. So I
Yeah.
understand wording is key. So how if we're going to this next level, knowing we have the actual expertise and the tools, how do you pitch yourself into this new realm? Because I know it's the mindset shift. I definitely got
Yeah.
that. So how do I pitch myself into this, not no new market, but to this next level? I say next, not new.
So here's the thing about pitching. So a lot of people talk about pitching and tell you to pitch. The problem is that you can't pitch properly if you don't know who your prospects are. And you won't know who your prospect is if you don't know what the message is, right? So if you haven't positioned yourself to understand who I am, what it is I want to do, who do I want to do it for, who's going to pay me for this, what is the transformation that I'm trying to create, what are the problems that I solve, all the things related to the message, right? If you don't have that, then you don't know who could possibly pay you, right? Because I know one of the things that you wrote in the application is like, getting to people who are the types of people that you need to get to. Well, the only way that you know who those people are is to understand what the message is and whose problems that you're solving. And are those problems that they care enough about that they're willing to pay you to solve? Right. And so we can pitch all day long. I could tell you, go pitch this person and pitch that person and go, and people will tell you, go pitch whatever. The problem is it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall, right? Because when you said, one of the questions you said, the topics they ask, if they're asking you to do a topic and then you're saying, okay, I'm going to do that topic, and it's not necessarily the topic that you would normally do, or that's not necessarily the topic that you have the deep level of expertise, that's like asking them their budget, right? They've decided what you're going to do, right? This is your business. You have to decide what you do. You decide what type of message you're going to put out in the world. You decide what problems you're going to solve, right? And so if you're listening, if you're taking in from them and then just going about and doing whatever it is they want you to do, they're in control, right? We don't get to go to, Louis Vuitton and Chanel and Walmart or whatever and tell them like, this is what I want you to put on the shelf, right? And they're like, oh yeah, let me go put this on the shelf. No, they're like, here's what we have. Here's the price. Take it, don't take it. Right. And if they decide to, because they're like, oh, I think I want to get rid of this, or I want to work on this, or maybe I want people to taste this. It's new, like this is a new item. I want people to get it so that they can start talking about it. So they may lower the price or give you some type of sale price, right? So those are, when you're thinking about negotiating, those are things that you can think about, like, okay, I really want to be on this stage. So yeah, I'm going to lower, what my fee is, but you get to decide that on your end as the business owner. They don't get to decide that. Right. But if you don't understand all of those other things from the positioning, then they do get to decide, because you don't know. So whatever they say and whatever space you're in at the moment, lack or abundance, right? You'll operate in that space and that's how you'll respond.
That's good. Yeah, it definitely all centers around the mindset shift, going to this level. That's a lot. I'm taking it. It's so good, because sometimes you're doing what you do, and I love what I do, and I know that it definitely has made a lot of impact. The exposure is growing, but in this section of it, I have struggled with just putting that dollar amount on it, or putting that real strong, saying this is what you deserve, and then finding.
Let me ask you a question. Alfreda. So what is it? Why haven't you said to somebody, no, it's $5,000. It's $2,000. Like, why haven't you said that?
At the time, wanting the business, wanting to show up, and then I think I've been stuck in this method of proving, and not saying that I have to prove, but I think I have been doing it.
Yeah. That you feel that you have to prove something, right? Because if you're saying like you want the business, right? Business is an exchange, right? And so what is it? Tell me, what is it that's in your mind that the business and you showing up and giving all of your brilliance away for free is more important than them giving you money to show up and give your brilliance and share your brilliance?
Wait a minute, say that again.
So what was more important? Like, why was it more important to show up and do it for free, as opposed to being like, no, I'm showing up and I'm giving you all this for money? Like, how did money become secondary?
Because I was walking in the meaning that you said earlier of considering it new, instead of knowing that this is what I've been doing for years and just putting that on it. And to be honest, the example was the keynote opportunity with the college. It was one of my best girlfriends. When she asked, I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, I got you. Didn't even bring up that. Um, and for 15 minutes, I was sitting there like, well, it's not going to be a long amount of time. This is just, like I said, something for the real, something for social proof. So I'll do this for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that I've allowed sometimes the people who have walked up to me and asked for my, support in something like that, I've let that be more of a factor. I use it, like I said, to just start building up more of my portfolio and doing it in front of larger crowds versus the training. If I'm doing a training, I may be doing 5, 10, up to 20 people. To me, that's just a different environment versus you got 200 over here, or you're doing a lot more people, and
Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why that's different. Tell me why it's different if you have 5 or 10 or 20 people as opposed to 200 people. Tell me why that's different in your mind when it comes to money and whatever it is that you're saying it's different. Why it's different? Because I think this is interesting.
Oh goodness, don't do me like that. I think that because of who I'm servicing at the moment. Okay, if I'm over here training youth, I'm already in this mindset of, okay, this is a nonprofit. They are limited in their budget. I already know how I charge them with materials, head count, whatever. I have a number over here. I'm good with that. I'm fine. Now over here, because I was still putting it and equating it to this new arena, like you said, I'm not knowing my own worth and value to ask for this high ticket amount, because again, I'm trying to say, well, what is your budget? And then I'm trying to fit into that budget. Case in point, I was introduced to a organization. It's a hospitality group, and sent over my topics of trainings and different things, and they want to have a retreat. And so the first thing in my head was, okay, what are you going to charge them? Like, if you're creating this from like ground zero, because they don't have anything, the first thing I thought was, don't do it. Don't do what you've been doing. Start out 10 and go up, let them, like I said, let them say no. So I think that I've just struggled, and I think that has been my hindrance of always wanting to help, but I'm hurting myself. And I mean, that's the transparency moment that I have been struggling with probably for the last year, that a lot of times I have given away too much of my value, and not putting the exact price that I could be worth, because I was like, well, I don't want to look like I'm so expensive that and you see so many people just have their own remarks about it. So I realize that it's on me. It really is.
Yeah. So one thing, what other people think about you is not your business. So that's the first thing. Yeah. Second, why don't you want to look expensive? I want to look expensive. I don't want you to think that you could just be in my space or in my orbit for whatever you think. No, I want to be expensive. I want to be exclusive. I want to be right now. Listen, everybody has their desire. I don't get from you that your desire is to not be expensive or look expensive. I think that you are shying away from that because of other people. Don't worry about those other people, because you know what those other people aren't doing? Sending you money to pay your bills.
That part.
You know what those other people aren't doing? Asking you to speak and giving you money to do it. Right? They're watching you do whatever you do, and listen, they're paying people to do other things. I know that I don't know if you still do it, but you were doing all the novelty items, like the
Yeah,
cups and all
yeah,
that stuff. Okay. Do you charge people to do that?
yeah, yeah.
Right? And
Mhm.
it's not like, oh, what's your budget? You may ask what's their budget, but
No,
they
not for
gonna
that. I don't. It's
right,
just
they gonna
so
pay you for
serious.
that,
Right, right.
right? Same thing. That just happens to be a physical product. We
That
put less value on our intellectual property. We think, oh, well, what am I actually giving them? What you're giving them is the transformation. The reason that we discount it is back to what I was saying about the positioning, that you don't even know what the value is. So if you don't know the value, you can't. With the physical product, you can say, well, I bought this thing for this amount. I bought the glue, I got the hot gun, the glue gun, I got the rhinestones. So in your mind, you're like, okay, you're adding those things up. Now, when it goes to, okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do, capability statement training with you. I'm going to do some other training. You haven't in your mind put a number on that, a value on that. So when anybody, you don't know how to say, like, this is what this is, because you're like, oh, if I say, oh my gosh, if I said $5,000, they're going to think that's too expensive, as opposed to you being able to say, oh, it's $5,000 and standing in that. Because if they were to question you, you'd be like, I have 20 something years of experience doing this, this, and this. When I do this with people and they get their capability statements, they're able to go out there and secure 5 and 6 and 7 figure contracts. You lucky it's costing you $5,000, right? And that's what's going to be playing in your brain. That's how you have to be so um steadfast in understanding your value. And it's not your worth, right? It's not what you're worth. No one can ever pay you what you're worth. And when you talk about worth, you're attaching it personally, so that if somebody said, no, I'm not going to pay you the 5,000, you're like, oh, they don't think I'm worth 5,000. It has nothing to do with your worth. This is an exchange of value. This is a business transaction, right? It's my intellectual property to get you the transformation that you desire. What's that worth to you? Well, here's what it is worth to me. We can either agree or we'll agree to disagree. Right. So a lot of what's happening is internal conversation and chatter, and focused on what other people are saying or what other people are thinking. And they may or may not be thinking that, but you've decided that that's the story. Right. And now you have taken that on. And meanwhile, guess what they're doing? Those same people that you think are going to think you're too expensive, they're out there trying to be expensive. And
Mhm.
they're telling people how much stuff costs, and they're making people pay them. And meanwhile, you over here being like the good and faithful servant out here. Listen, you can do good when you got money.
Sure can. And I love how you put that earlier. And do you find that is that something that we, as majority of professional Black women, find ourselves doing more often than not? We will downplay our value, not worth, because you just all over my feet over here, woman. I just can't. I mean, I love it because I find myself saying that too, but not reflecting it back to, yeah, you're doing that what you just told somebody else not to do, you're actually doing this. And I mentor a lot of younger professional women that's walking up on me, and I can tell them so fast, do this, do this, do this, but I do struggle with
We
walking,
always do. You're
right?
not alone. You're not, I mean, I do it too. We're not alone. And that,
Girl, you don't look like, no, and I love watching you
oh,
and
thank you.
Precious and everybody just like, and I'm like, where do they where do they get that? Especially Dawn. When you was working with, like, I'm like, how, like, I just want to be like that. Like, just let me just get out of my own
You
head.
have to get out your head.
Yeah, you've read me really good
Yeah.
today. Really
Yeah,
good.
it's really about clarity, right? So one of the things that people ask about, especially with charging, is that they want the confidence. Oh, I want the confidence to be able. No, it's not confidence. Clarity precedes confidence. You got to get very clear about all the things that I was saying that you need to get clear about. The confidence and the courage then will come, because you're just like, oh, okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
now I understand. You don't understand. So anything they tell you, anything they say to you, anything that they're like give you a side eye about is going to shake you because you're not clear about what it is, right? That you are offering to them or how you're changing their life, how you're changing their perspectives, how you're transforming their business, right? Whether it's 5 people in a room or 50 or 300 or 3,000, right? It doesn't matter. If what they've asked you to do, you go in and you're able to transform people and you're able to deliver on what it is that you're saying that you can deliver on, there's a value to that. You just have to decide what the value is. And then I always say, be able to say it and shut up, right? Because what happens is then we'll say, oh, I want to be a $5,000 speaker. I want to be a 10,000, 20,000. But the moment you say that number and the person either is silent or you feel some kind of way, you'll be like, it's 10,000. But, if you want to do, and that's not 10,000. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number that when you say you gag a little bit, but then you can just shut up and just be like, okay.
I love that you said say it and shut up. Another thing that you
Mhm.
just brought to my attention. Oh gosh, don't let it be don't left me just that quick. Something that you said in how did that just disappear, girl? The age, Jesus. Um, Clarity. That's it.
Mhm.
Because, and I have had this before, being for profit, I've had a lot of mistakes of, oh, you're a nonprofit. And it's like, no, I'm not. I am a for profit. I support them because I know they get money,
Mhm.
and the third. And when it comes to the clarity of basically, I think that I have been merging everything together instead of being very strategic in how I position the transformation. Okay, I use the example. If I know that I'm working in the training space and given a project to work with a program or something, I know how to put myself in a when I'm proposing, I'm going to say, well, it's this much plus materials plus assessments that I can do that. I don't really even struggle with that, right?
Mhm.
Probably going up on it, yes. But I know what I was doing. I'll say I know what I was doing. And so the issue of clarity of now being able to add this is that being able to say, what am I really speaking towards, right? Because the example would be just got an email this morning for a proposal for one of our universities, and they have a Black Alumni Association, and they're doing a network forum in March, right? Young lady wants me to be a part of that. Now, I have not talked any type of budget, any of that, because obviously this is just a space out there, but we're going to have a talk. We're going to have a talk. So if it comes down to that, then like you said, it's standing on, okay, if I'm coming into this arena and knowing my expertise, my background, not asking about a budget, but saying, what is that transformation worth to you? Is
No,
that
no,
no?
no.
Dismiss
You have to no, they know what the transformation is worth to them. You have to know what the transformation is that you're going to create and what it's worth, what the value is to you. How do you value the transformation? There's no the conversation is about my fee is. I'd love to do it. My fee starts at.
Okay, my fee starts at. Okay.
Or
Okay.
my fee is. So if you just want to say my fee is,
Because if they don't bring up fee and I don't bring up fee, then obviously
then
it's
there's no conversation about fees.
about fees.
So if you leave the conversation and you're like, oh yeah, this is great. I would love to do it. And they're like, yeah, we're not paying folks. And you haven't said anything about getting paid, then guess what the conversation is left at? There's no money being exchanged.
That's
But
what
if you say, hey, before we get off this call, let's talk about, let's talk about fees. My fee for this is, and then let them say, and then maybe like, oh, we weren't thinking of paying people. Okay, well, then you got to decide. And, just have a conversation, just be like, well, you're expecting me to come and do this and this and this, and this is what I do for a living. Like, this is my business. So, do you have some other, now at that point you can ask, is there some other line, budget, or some other, maybe it's like, the alumni and whoever else are putting it together. And so they have a budget for speakers. Like, is there a budget for speakers somewhere else that you can tap into? Right? Do you have sponsors or somebody that can sponsor my fee? Now that's when you can ask a conversation about that, but their budget in general is not your business.
I love how you said it. It's not my business.
It's not. Because they don't know, like they don't know all of what it took. They know what they see on social media. They don't know, right? So they know their problem. They know the transformation they want. I know how to solve their problem, and I know the transformation, and I know all the things that I know, and that the experience that I have that takes me to that point. So now we have to have a conversation about that. We can either agree or we disagree. Maybe we have the same numbers. Maybe we don't.
Mm-hmm. I love like I said, from meeting you during the pandemic online and just seeing this elevation. And I mean, it's just like a meteor, like it shot up. Like, you've always been, I mean, and you're gonna probably say, yes, I have, but not, is this a normal occurrence that I know you said, it is kind of like a normal occurrence that we see within a lot of professional women, to really struggle in this arena of, knowing our value. I'm gonna stop saying work, because definitely we are bringing that back personal, and I think that is the case.
Yeah.
You made a clarity point really, really strong to say, if I'm equating that to my personal worth as a businesswoman and as
as a human,
it's like, well, yeah, I definitely have a heart to do the work and to do what I do best, and I'm gonna give it, everything that I have. But if I can't equate the value to it, then I am really lowballing myself, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about with when I say, are you being complicit in your own erasure, right? So one of the reasons, or the main reason that I started Speaker Moguls, was because I wanted to ensure that women's value is not erased. What I know is that we're complicit in our erasure because we don't understand the business of speaking. We don't understand branding as it relates to speaking. We don't understand those aspects of it. We know how to speak, right? The women that I work with know how to speak. They don't lack credentials. They don't lack credibility. They don't lack authority. It's that they're not positioned. They don't understand positioning, right? And so it's not that you don't have the things; they're just not packaged properly, not positioned properly. And so, yes, that is a that is the thing that is plaguing us. And because we just want to be out there and give it away, and we haven't figured out that that's actually a product. So if you were to think about it as a physical product, because if it was a physical product, y'all wouldn't be just like, oh yeah, here, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get to talk, and you get to talk, and you get to talk. If you thought about a talk as a physical object, you wouldn't do that. But because we don't put that same physicality on our intellectual property, then for us, it really has no true value, or true value that you understand.
Well, what about when I know when you say you've done the TEDx, and I've seen opportunities here and finding opportunities, obviously, to, I guess you could say, add more value and add more subject matter. Do you believe that we should, do that at all? I mean, because I don't.
They're strategic. Anything that's what I said before. Like, if you're not going to get paid, it has to be strategic. That TEDx got me a $40,000 contract. So while I didn't get paid for a TEDx, the fact that I did that TEDx and a CEO was able to watch my TEDx, and it removed any friction that he had. That's how I got a $40,000 contract. So you have to be intentional and strategic. Again, it goes back to positioning. I knew what I was doing and what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and what problems I wanted to solve. Like, what is the thing? So doing that TEDx, I didn't just do a TEDx to do a TEDx. I did a TEDx because it was purposeful, right? And so everything that you do, you have to look at it and decide for your business, does that work and make sense? Does it math? Does the math for your business? But if it's, I'm going to do this thing and I have zero, it may not be right away. Like I did that TEDx in 2018, and I think that contract was in 2020, maybe early 21, right? So that's years. So it may not be a direct, but he specifically said, I saw your TEDx. I don't know why they're asking you all these questions. I'm good. Right. So there are things. So you just have to know. But if like I know that I'm just gonna go out here and be on stage, unless I just feel like I have nothing else to do and I just feel like doing it and it just feel good and I know I'm not gonna get anything out of it, but I want to do this. But that can't be the business model.
Well, I do look to convert, like, and that is what's happened. Now, what's crazy is after I've done, trainings or events, they flop. They come up, and then it's like, okay, based on what they need, okay, I have gotten clients out of that. Now that's not a question. And I've, done research to say, well, you definitely need to have some collateral after the fact. I was in Georgia last week, did a capability statement training. I had my manuals that, I was told to create, and they were buying as soon as, look, they were asking for an autograph. I said, well, Lord, you want to,
yeah.
So I recognize that there's value in that, and I definitely know how to hit them with, okay, get a sponsor to compensate for whatever you can't come up with.
It's the same conversations.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
have
same conversations. They're not different. It's the same conversation. So this has been awesome. Alfred, you had some really good questions. So I think this will be a great episode for people to watch. And you have to keep asking the questions, because I think what happens is when we don't ask, well, I know what happens is when we don't ask the questions, we don't get the information to move us forward. So I'm glad that you were here. I'm so glad you raised your hand and put yourself out here, because some people don't want to do that because they don't want to feel like, oh, don't worry about it. The ones who ask questions are the ones who will get ahead. So thank you for being a guest on the Mentor Me Kelly Show. If you want to be a guest on the Mentor Me Kelly Show, you can drop a comment, submit an application. You'll see in the show notes. I think I'll make sure that's in the show notes that where you can apply to be on the Mentor Me Kelly Show. We're doing this really as capsules, so they're not going to be tons and tons of these, but I wanted to make sure that I do give you an opportunity, and I, am able to help women, experts, speakers, and thought leaders really move the needle and to stop being complicit in our own erasure. So make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's at the Kelly Charles Collins. And that's where you'll find the Mentor Me Kelly Show. You'll also find our Thought Leader Circle show. And if I decide to do another show, it'll be there too. All right, y'all. Take care. Make sure that you watch. Make sure you take notes, but not just take notes and implement on the things that you're learning, because that's where you're going to move the needle. It's not gathering information. We gather information all the time. We don't take action. And the action is where you're going to find progress and success. So until next time, take care.